Hello, and welcome to Classically Imperfect, an organization dedicated to providing mental health and wellness resources to young classical musicians. I'm Mary Lizalde, the founder and executive director, and today I am joined by Keith Fleming, a tuba player and senior at the University of Miami. Today we'll be discussing the logistics and commitment that come with building your own music program or organization as a student musician. Hi, Keith, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. Okay, so let's just get into it. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved in music and what El Sistema inspired program you were in?
So I originally started in the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra's Orchids program, which is an El Sistema-based program, music education program. I started in first grade, and I ended in my senior year, which was 2020, the COVID year. So yeah, and I kind of sort of at first joined as just to have something to do after school, something to keep busy, but then it started turning into a passion that I love to do. And as I got more involved, I seen more avenues that interested me. So I kind of sort of just started hopping on and trying different things and just exploring more and more with music.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about the program, like what the hours were like, or is the main focused in classical music, or was it more like outside of that?
Yeah, so our main focus was classical music. And we, as far as like the hours went, it was mainly 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 every day after school. And then they had in-school programming as well, but after a certain age, you can't do it because I think the in-schooling was only for elementary. And then once you get in middle school, you would come in like they would essentially bring in students from all around Baltimore.
Mhm.
Students that wanted to do it, and we would all meet, like the advanced students would meet at a certain place, and we would have like ensemble work and things like that. But it was essentially like we had a time where we had like a lessons or group classes where we worked with one specific teacher on brass or strings or whatever our main instrument group was. And then we had different classes that were like bucket band or choir and things like that that were helping with our other skills like our rhythm and our hearing. And we were able to kind of sort of apply that in the lessons and things like that because those kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, definitely. I was just curious because I like recently found out that some El Sistema programs are like just choir based or like just jazz based, and I had no ideas. I was just curious. But can you tell us a little bit about your new program and the program that you recently started?
Okay, the program that I created is called the Right Direction Project. And essentially, what we're trying to do is arm the students that are coming through our program with the ability to take music and make it into a lucrative career in today's society. Um, like we know with the advancements of music technology, it's so easy to make music. Like you can do it in the snap of a finger,
Yeah.
being inclined or not musically inclined. So we are trying to give the students the ability to use the technology and pair that with their skills that they already have as musicians, and then also pairing that with real world tools such as financial literacy and also social media and monetization, being able to be on top of these things, and one, being able to leverage the money that you make when you're in this field, and two, being able to monetize yourself and keep up the engagement from your fan base and your support system. That's very crucial in the music world that we're living in today. So we started a program that includes not only music aspects but real world aspects. And the how it goes, the 5 classes that we have is we have a music ensemble class, which is essentially we're in an ensemble together learning different types of music. Our program is not classically based. We're more of a like popular music based program, because we feel like that is what the students can relate to the most, and then we can use the classical skills that we do know to teach it through that type of music. So we kind of sort of go for things that you hear on the radio by more popular artists, and then also we use jazz standards and New Orleans brass band standards and things like that to kind of sort of introduce like the techniques of basic rhythms and things like that that we want them to understand, while also putting on things that they know and that they hear We have a music analysis class, which is kind of sort of a music theory class, but we're just really, really deeply analyzing music. From the music that came from before us and then the music that we hear now, and then we're comparing and contrasting the things that they're doing and that we do, and seeing how we can kind of sort of blend that more, or seeing what those differences are and why they made those specific things the way they did. Then we have a beat making class, which I feel like that one is kind of sort of self-explanatory.
Mhm.
Again, with where we're going with music, you can make music on a computer anywhere at any time. So we're kind of sort of giving the students the ability to use these systems that you have on your computer, because
Mhm.
they already know how to make music and they already understand the abilities that they have. So giving the students the chance to work with that. And then we have a financial literacy course, which is, so last year we had lectures from students here at the University of Miami. We have a club here called Kane's Invested, and it's like a financial literacy course. So we had them come in and give a couple lectures. This year we're going on a different route, and we're creating kind of sort of this game slash model of we're taking like a fictional character and sort of going through his life as a musician and an artist,
Mhm.
and as he makes money, and what he does with the money. Should he save it? Should he invest it? How should he save it? How should he invest it? And how do you get into these things to start using your money correctly? And sort of going through the life of what that would be and different avenues that you can take to make money in the music world.
Mhm.
Um, and then we have social media lectures from, we know a couple of people that do podcasts, and we have them come in and give lectures on why they went into podcasting, how they got there, and how they keep up the flow with it, and how they keep up engagement with the people that they're working with and things like that. So we're trying to give the students a wide variety of things that they can take from the program and start applying to their daily lives. And we have one more class that's not really a class, it's more so integrated into the whole camp. And it's kind of, we call it like our leadership class or leadership workshop, where the
Mhm.
students are kind of sort of in control of everything that they're doing, while also learning from us. They're also learning what it would be like to be in a position to, for instance, plan a gig, like how you have to communicate with the people, the contact person from the venue, and then how you have to schedule your time with your band in order to start on time, have time to eat, have time to leave, things like that, giving them the chance to be behind the wheel and really learn how to drive the bus.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think like a lot of the music programs today are either like choir based or classical music based, and to have this program that's completely about modern music and like giving students the tools, giving the students what they want to see. I think that's really cool. And also how it's kind of like when we were at Yola and we were talking about like the student voice and the student perspective, you're doing that through your music program, which is really cool. And I've also seen like a rise in music production classes, but I
Yeah.
noticed that like it can be very expensive. Is your program like free, by the way, or how does it work?
So right now we're a summer program. We a week long that happens. It's a week long thing that happens in the middle of the summer. So it's a tuition based thing, but the tuition is $500, and we normally don't charge the students. We charge the programs that we're working with, the El Sistema programs. So
Yeah.
to try
Mhm.
to make it cost efficient for the students to be able to come.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds so cool. I think it's really important to see like what the students want and what they need, and for you to like provide them this program that does everything is really cool. How did being in an El Sistema inspired program help you with building your program? Are there any key traits or learning methods that you took with you? I know you talked about a little bit about how you're using like the things that you learned in classical music in your program. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so being in the El Sistema program is, I mean, without that program, I honestly wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So it's, it was to me, noticing how it was the driving force and the change, and creating the person that I was, it kind
Mhm.
of sort of gave me the basis of what we needed to provide to students nowadays so that they can also get this same type of change.
Mhm.
So that's really the biggest thing that I kind of sort of took from that, was like, how can we create change for the students now?
Mm,
that's not, because it's not the same as it was when we were students and we were like first growing up and getting introduced to this. So
mhm,
um essentially I kind of sort of took pieces from a lot of the different programs I've been to throughout the years. For
mhm,
instance, at Orchids, we do a lot of like with this thing we have called bucket band, and I would like to say that that was the closest thing that we did to modern music. Um, and we sort of created bucket band songs out of there using different types of rhythms, different types of syncopations, and
mhm,
different types of things to kind of sort of like make a sound for Baltimore. That's what we were going for. And so this idea was something that inspired what we do with our music ensemble class. We take songs that we heard on the radio, and because that includes all types of rhythms, from rhythms that all composers used back in the day that
mhm,
composers use now, and it includes all types of things. So we were like, let's take this popular music and explain harmony and explain how melodies are supposed to how the melodies are supposed to work together, and how you're supposed to have harmonies and secondary lines and things like these, and bass lines are supposed to work this way in certain ways, like just taking these elements and kind of sort of fleshing them out. um we got that, we were inspired from our bucket band class, or we do this thing in Baltimore called creative composition a lot. I know that Dan Trahey has been pushing this a lot with more Alpha STEM programs, but
mhm,
we used to do that a lot in Baltimore, which is essentially composing music, but in the most basic way. It's breaking down the barriers of the music terminology that we normally use and making it as simple as possible for anyone to be able to understand. So we take aspects of that, of breaking down the music in a very, very basic way, and then putting it together in our own way, if that makes sense. So where we like to explore the creativity that the students have, not only with the music that they hear, but creating their own type of music as well. And we feel like it's dope to see them take these different pieces and
mhm,
arrange them and make them their own, because you only hear it a certain way on the internet or on the radio, and for you to be able to actually break it down and hear it your own way, I think that that adds a lot to like a musicality base of being able to hear like an orchestral piece of music, and being able to decipher which is the figure bass and which is the main melody and which is something that is just supposed to be motion and just supposed to be moving, or am I supposed to just be holding this out and being subtle? Like we kind of sort of dive very deep into the musicality that artists use nowadays. And I feel like we don't talk about that enough. The musicality that goes into making pop music, because there's a lot of it in there. And if we start, and I think another thing that we took from the program is, if we make the things that we're learning, if we make music relatable, it will reach more people.
mhm,
So I think that was the biggest thing that we took, was if we make the teaching of music relatable, then the idea of music being a tool for students across the country will be easier and more accessible, because they can relate to it and they can go off and do this and not feel intimidated by
mhm.
the fact that this is something that is out of their grasp.
Yeah, definitely. I think you spoke to that really well. And in my opinion, a lot of music programs today are like the complete opposite of that. Like you don't learn how to improv or how rhythms work or like how to make your own melodies. It's kind of just like reading off the page, which is something that, we should introduce to our music programs. And I think that's a really important element of being a musician is having that creative part of you. Because if you think about it, like all classical musicians really do is play other people's music. And if we don't have our own like way of like creating music, like me personally, I've never written anything in my entire life. And I feel like if there was like a music class, or if there was like a teacher that told me like how to do that, then I probably would have been so much better at my like creative musical side and like my rhythm and things like that. And I think it's a really important element to bring into music today. And also the relatability part of it. I've been thinking a lot about, like the different stereotypes that specifically classical music has on like everything. Like it's considered to be this very like rigorous and mentally draining community, when in my community, I feel like it's not that that wasn't really how I grew up. It's kind of more of like ex getting out of that El Sistema bubble, because our programs in El Sistema are probably like the least mentally draining and rigorous programs out there, especially in like, European and like different classical programs. And I think really stepping out of that is when I really realized like the huge culture shock. But to bring different melodies and like creativity into your students, I think that's really beautiful. And I hope we see more of that in like more modern day music programs. And by the way, I'm like met Dan Trahey. I'm doing like this El Sistema ambassador program, and he's like at every meeting.
Yeah, Dan's a great guy. That's one of my mentors. He started the program in Baltimore,
Oh,
and I forget, I think it was 2008, him and a couple of other people. So yeah, that's how long I've known him.
wow.
He makes me feel like an old man, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's a great guy, and he's the founding member of this idea of giving the students the creative control,
Mhm.
and letting them being able to explore this more than what we do, because I feel like we we talk a lot about how being a musician is, it opens up your creative mind, but like you said, most of the time we're only playing music that's created by other people, and
Mhm.
we're creating what they had, what they set in place for us, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But sometimes we got to just start breaking the mold, and that's what I want a lot of my students to understand, or anybody that I speak to, not my students. I One thing I try to preach is like, don't assimilate, don't be
Mhm.
inside the box, break the box.
Yeah, definitely. It's really important also for like self-esteem and like knowing that you can create something on your own and you don't need anyone else, or playing
Like,
something on a page. It doesn't have to be perfect. But yeah, I really hope that more music programs adapt this new concept and like bring that to their students. I can only imagine the difficulty of creating a program from scratch. Can you tell us a little bit about the obstacles you have faced so far?
man, it's been a long journey, but I will say it's been fun, to be honest. Like I didn't expect it to have as much joy in it as it does. Like seeing everything come together and
Mhm.
actually happen is probably the best part to me about it. But as far as the obstacles, I mean, alone, like finding a place to have it, and finding people that you trust to work with, to trust your ideas, that was really hard for us, because we come from a place, and I say us because I have a partner. His name is Devon Dennis. He's a student at the Peabody Conservatory. He's studying jazz performance. He's a drummer, and we came together to start this together. So that's why I keep saying us. But
Mhm.
so when we first went into this, we didn't know who we could trust with the idea of starting something that we felt was more modern and more new than what we were getting from a lot of teachers. And we didn't, I mean, not teachers, a lot of camps. And then we didn't want to feel like if we pitched it to someone, that someone could use that for their own gain. And so that was like the biggest obstacle, was getting out of our own way and
Yeah.
just starting to understand that um, people are going to support you if you show them that you care a lot about what you're doing. And
Mhm.
it's not necessarily about, if someone's going to take this, or if someone, really needs this or that, because it doesn't matter what they're going to do if you care about what you're doing, and if you're strong and you believe in what you're doing and you keep pushing it, what you're doing will fall through the cracks. And so that was the biggest thing for me, like figuring out that support system. And then once we found the support system, it was logistics of how can we make this camp, like for instance, the schedule of having a day schedule, like how can we make this camp interesting while also making sure it's informative? How can we make sure students are engaged while also making sure that they aren't burned out? Because we got a different perspective from the people that came from before us, because the camps that they built in place, they run differently from the camps that they came from before. If like so they're changing the path that they had. So now we're kind of sort of changing the path that they laid for us.
Mhm.
So we did a lot of like analyzing of the schedules that we had when we went to camps such as Interlaken, or this camp that Dan Trahey has called Archipelago, or we did camps with orchids and things like that.
Mhm.
And even the Yola camps. And we thought about, okay, when did we start? For instance, at Yola National, we would start our day, I think, at like 8 a.m.
Mhm.
Um, so we took a page from their book. We said, okay, let's have an 8 a.m. start. And then a camp that we do at Peabody, I think they do like a 30-minute reflection at
Mhm.
the beginning of the day to make sure kids are getting into the mindset of like,
Mhm.
ready to make music and to actually learn. So
Mhm.
we took a page from their book and we were like, let's take that. We like the idea of this 30-minute reflection, do it in our own way. And we kind of just started piecing those things together to make a schedule that felt like it flowed for something that we would like as kids.
Mhm.
Because I think that's what we're trying to entertain, the
Mhm.
thought of like, what would we have done when we were kids? What would we have rather wanted than now? Because if we look at it from now, and it's like we have a whole different perspective of how we work and how much we can handle. Um, so we tried to view it like that. And as far as the schedule went, it seemed like the students really enjoyed the schedule. So like being very tedious on that, it was important. And then other obstacles, hiring people, because it was so many people that we had in mind. We met so many people and worked with so many great musicians along the way that we wanted to include on this. But we had to realize that right now, we don't have we don't have the means to have the firepower that we want. So
Mhm.
we have to narrow down our list a lot to make it a little bit more attainable for us.
Mhm.
But things like that, just figuring out logistics of who we could have at the camp that will support us, but also that we know we can support and that we can let them take the reins sometimes. Because a big idea that we have for this program is for this program to be able to operate without us being there.
Mhm.
And that's from having, to me, I've been reading this book. I forget the no, I don't forget the name. It's called Atomic Habits. And basically he was talking about how a better mindset to have is to have a system that works instead of worrying about what is happening in the system, if
Mhm.
that makes sense, or who's operating in the system. And so like create a system that will work if you take a person out, instead of having a system that is solely based off of, if Keith is there, this will work. So I've been kind of sort of going about the logistics in that way, making it so that we can be a very diverse program that can operate with anybody at the helm based off the system that we created. So
Yeah.
those are some obstacles that we had and kind of ways that we worked through it.
How long did it take you to like piece everything together? Like when was the first year that this program like launched?
We launched in 2022.
Mhm.
No, sorry, it was 2023, the summer of 2023. And we started planning in the fall of 2022.
Mhm.
Uh, So it took us about 3 to 4 months just to have like the idea of the program and what it's doing and how it's going to actually serve the students. Because we
Mhm.
had so many ideas that we had to kind of sort of toss out.
Mhm.
And we went through a lot of peer-to-peer process. So we did lots and lots of Zoom calls with a lot of teachers and a lot of peers that we have met over the years to get their opinion on what we were doing and how we can narrow things down. So it
Mhm.
took a long time just to get that in. And then once we locked in what we had, once we knew that this is what the program was going to be, we presented it to Peabody Preparatory, which is the program that me and Devon both grew up in, as
Mhm.
well as Baltimore, I mean, as well as the Orchids program.
Mhm.
So we presented it to them. Originally, we presented it as an idea just to have a couple of their students from their program come and attend what we were doing. But then it turned into us being able to host the program there for that year, which was a huge blessing for us because it took a lot of burden off of our back. We were still able to be hands-on with the process. And that was one thing that was another obstacle for us that we we had to really, really work hard through because we didn't know that we weren't going to be able to be, we weren't as hands-on with the project as we wanted to be
Mhm.
because we were working with a institution who had their own rules set in place. So that was one thing that we had to really adjust to.
Mhm.
But after we figured that out, and we knew that we could have it at Peabody, it just simply came to word of mouth, like preaching it to everyone that we met, pitching it everywhere. And
Mhm.
that's how we were able to build up our roster of students. And then from there, we were able to have it in 2023, in August of 2023. And it was successful. We had 25 students altogether. Most of the students did reviews and they said that they would come back.
Mhm.
So that's good. We've had a lot of students speak about how they learned a lot about their financial habits. For instance, some students said that they are starting to save money now that they came through the camp. So
Mhm.
that was something that we really appreciated. And then we had students talking about how they could hear better in their ensembles and things like that. Like they were able to start applying some of the tools they got from us.
Mhm.
So yeah, it ended up being a good year, but that was like the process starting from August of 2022 and then getting it to August of 2023 and actually having it.
Yeah, that's great. And I think like seeing like the end result and seeing like the results that your students gave you probably gave you like so much fulfillment and like like motivation to continue going. That's something that I really struggled with in the beginning of creating my project. There was so much work going on and I didn't know if it would like fulfill me in the end. And after like months went on, that's when it really did. What advice would you give a musician interested in creating their own music program or being a program director? And then this is kind of like what I just said. What motivates you every day to continue showing up for your program?
Okay, to be a program, it's kind of different sets of advice. So if you are starting your own program, I would say again, don't try to fit inside the box. Break
Mhm.
outside of that box and don't let anyone uh push you inside the box either because we need new things, especially in art. That's the whole thing that keeps art going. It keeps it rejuvenated is the idea of having something new, a renaissance somewhere.
Mhm.
So break the box. Don't assimilate. Don't try to be the culture unless you want to do that. And if that's what you would like to do that and stand on that. But I would say if you're going in to create something that you want to change lives with, be different and stand and be different and hold to being different
Mhm.
because it will come through in the end. Like I haven't even seen the full effect of what my program can do.
Mhm.
I just see and I hear little bits and pieces from people because I'm in Miami right now and all of the students are in Baltimore. And I
Mhm.
just get texts throughout the year like saying, hey, like blank, blank, blank was talking about the Right Direction project and they really enjoyed blank, blank, blank. And it's like just still seeing like those little twinkles of hope. It's like, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
you gotta keep going, keep being different and keep at what you're doing because it's working.
Mhm.
But if you're being a program director, I would say to be as informative as possible.
Mhm.
Um, because at this time, like I feel like a lot of teachers go into this being thinking that students don't know enough when really they know a lot more than what we think they do.
Mhm.
And we give them some information more. Sometimes you got to give them more than what they're asking for
Mhm.
because that would be the thing that changes the kids' lives. So I used to ask a lot of questions all the time. So um, for me, anytime I learned anything new, that was always good for me. So when people would sometimes tell me things without me having to ask, it would just be like, okay, now I'm going to go explore that on my own. And that's what kept me going. It kept that spark. So that's what I would say if you want to be a program director in any way. And the motivation to keep going is the same thing, like that twinkle of hope, just seeing and knowing that people are learning and people are growing from what we're doing. That's all I can ask for.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really beautiful to see like everything lining up and I know you're gonna be very successful like just with the program that you described. Do you like see yourself this becoming like a an all year program or just summer program?
Yeah, eventually I want us to grow into an all-year program. And the summer program was essentially for us to test the curriculum and
Mhm.
see what things that we should tweak in order to make it into something that could benefit students all year round.
Yeah, definitely. I think this would be an amazing all-year program.
Thank
Um,
you.
my final question for you is, do you believe there are enough mental health and wellness resources in the classical music community or the music community in general?
No, I don't. I think that this has to be preached a lot more because
Mhm.
we a lot of people that go into music are dealing with a lot of trauma anyway. Some
Mhm.
people don't even realize that they are, but they are. And also growing up in these El Sistema programs and things like that, you deal with a lot of trauma that we often don't really sit down and think about and reflect on. So I don't think that there's enough resources. And I think that what you're doing is very, very important because it's going to change the lives of the next generation of musicians.
Mhm.
So please keep it up.
Thank you. Do you have any like final things that you want to say or?
No, I think that I kind of said everything that my mind has and my heart has been wanting me to say. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to learn more about my organization and Keith's organization, make sure to click the link in our bio. Bye.